All right, hey guys. So, welcome back to my channel. I have been MIA for a long time, probably like a year since the last time I posted a long-term video or long form video. Um, and really, it's just been for a lot of reasons. Mainly, I started this YouTube journey. I started this YouTube journey probably close to 10 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, something like that. And in that time frame, I started out doing certain types of content and then I stopped and then I started out doing something else and then I stopped. And I would say that my pattern is that I usually start out um, kind of strong for a good couple of weeks. After a month, and kind of fizzles out. And then I never, continue with it. And then I never actually see the growth that could come from it. This time around, I'm really praying that it is different. I don't want to jinx myself, but I really feel very strongly about it this time around. Last year, when I tried to get back into it, it was the same. And then life happened. I started another job, routine got off. So, I'm looking at all of my failures with starting back up my YouTube in the past, and I'm trying to learn from them to see what I can do differently, how much more I need to apply myself to make this go round count. The reason that I am not giving up on this journey is for multiple reasons. The main reason is that, I want to try to start making a living off of YouTube. Like, the main reason is to build, at least enough subscribers that I am able to start making money, not only off YouTube, but from ads and from any sort of like online things like ebooks or just anything that will allow me to make a living for my kids where I'm able to not work a 9 to 5. That's really the biggest thing for me, which leads up to the topic of this video. In this video, I want to just give a little bit of background about who I am, what my life is like as me. And that way, you guys have a good background, I guess, of me as I continue to make videos. You know a little bit more about who I am, what my day to day is, things that I deal with.
I think I'm crazy, the way I've been craving. If I put it quite plainly, just give me them, baby.
So I'm just going to start with the fact of, I'll just start with my age. Let's just start there. A lot of women don't like to tell their age. And I've never been one of those women that lie about their age. I'm not ashamed of my age, but I think for me, a lot of people don't expect that I am the age that I am. So, it's a whole conversation around, okay, if I say how old I am, then we have a whole nother conversation. How, why, when, where, what, you know. So for me, I have no shame at my age. I will say that I do struggle with growing older. It's not something that I'm dealing with very well because I still feel very young, aside from the fact that I like to take several naps a day, but I still feel very young. So for me, it's really hard to kind of grasp the fact that I'm not 22, even though I feel 22 still. Anyways, but I'm 42. That's how old I am. I'm 42 years old. And at the age of 42, I have 4 kids. My oldest is 21. I have a 21-year-old girl. I have a 18-year-old girl. I have a 17-year-old boy. And I have a 14-year-old little girl. And birthday season is right around the corner. And I'm saying birthday season because all of their birthdays fall in the cluster of months following summer, and I think the last one is in November. So all of them will be a year older here within the next 4 to 5 months or so. How I have 4 kids at the age of 42? Let's get a little bit into that. Okay, so I got married at 20. I was not a teen mom. A lot of people, when they hear that I got kids, they think that I started having babies, at 14 or 15. No shame to those women who had babies early. I did have babies early, but I was not a teenager when I had babies. I was a grown up. I was 20 years old when I had my first child. I also got married that same year. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't want to get married, and I never saw myself having children. When I was a young person in my teenage years, I was really adamant about not having sex till I was 18. I didn't want to have sex till I was 18. My mom, I grew up in a very, very Christian household. We were a Pentecostal family. We went to church a lot. I wore skirts all the time. Every day was like forbidden to wear pants. We didn't wear makeup. We didn't listen to secular music. I couldn't even go to the movies. So my mom was pretty strict, for me growing up, for all of us. For me, I wasn't like a normal teenager. I didn't get to do a lot of the things that all the other teenagers were doing. So for me to have sex before 18 was definitely out of question. I knew I wasn't going to wait till I was married to have sex. And I only say that because marriage wasn't something that I saw myself doing very soon. Babies definitely wasn't something I saw myself doing very soon. So I just didn't have that as like my goal, when I was a young person. It just wasn't something that I dreamed about or thought about. I would be lying if I said I didn't think about a wedding or a wedding dress, but it wasn't something that I seen in my near future, as I was like, I don't know, from the ages of 10 to let's say 17 or so. I met my kid's dad when I think I was 16 and he was 17, and I had a boyfriend at the time that I was dating. And I had boyfriends before I was 18, but they were pretty much just like, I call her locker boyfriends. Like, you saw them at school and, you said that you were dating or going together or whatever you want to call it, but um, we weren't doing it. I would say by the time I got 16 or so, we was definitely doing touchy-feely type stuff, but I wasn't having sex. When I met my kid's dad, he was a little bit more aggressive, more persistent, but I still did not give up the cookie to him until I was 18. So when me and him started being active, I would say maybe a year later, when I was 19, I had gotten pregnant. And I was a good 2 months in, and I had no idea. When I found out I was pregnant, I found out because I pretty much fainted at work and got rushed to the hospital just to find out that I was pregnant. I wouldn't say I was excited about being pregnant, but I wasn't upset about it. At that time, women's options and choices weren't openly talked about. So the idea of, having an abortion or adoption or anything like that was not something that we talked about in my family, definitely being a Christian family. So for me being pregnant, it was kind of like, okay, well, I guess I'm having a baby. And in my mind, it wasn't like the worst thing in the world because I grew up in a family that has a lot of babies. I've been surrounded by children my whole life. It wasn't something that I saw in my future right away, but I wasn't like feeling like it was the end of the world. And at that time, me and the kid's dad were together. So I did feel like I had a partner in that. A month later, at 3 months, I had miscarried and I was devastated. I didn't know how a miscarriage could actually make one feel, especially being that, as a young person, I'm thinking the baby isn't even fully grown, but I didn't know I was going to grieve that baby like that. And I didn't know, and I don't think the dad knew that he was going to feel the way he felt when we miscarried. So we miscarried and we took that pretty hard. I think that we were both really emotional at that time because a month later, on Valentine's Day, we conceived my oldest child. So I ended up being pregnant again. This time around, I didn't feel as happy about the pregnancy because me and him had broken up and we weren't, I was in a headspace where I was for sure I did not want to be with this person long term. So when I found out I was pregnant, I knew this time that I was expected it. I didn't even need a pregnancy test because I just felt it in my body that I was carrying a little one. So I just kind of started to look for things like my breast started to get bigger, my appetite started to grow, my stomach started to grow. So I just knew I was pregnant with Journey when I got pregnant, from the moment that I conceived. Um, and in that situation, I knew I was going to be a single mom. And so I was already kind of preparing myself for that. Like I said, it was kind of a hard pill to swallow the second time around because I actually had plans. I wanted to be a model, I wanted to be an actress, and I, at the time, had agents that wanted me to be in a few commercials and they wanted And they were telling me that I was going to be good at it. They said that I would be like really good at starting out as, a commercial actor, and that they would for sure be able to start putting me in movies with small roles, and I could build up from there because they thought that I had a talent at acting. So for me, I had just signed to a modeling agency, and I kind of had plans for myself. So getting pregnant just kind of ruined that at that time. So I kind of went into a deep hole where I just kind of isolated myself at that time. And so I wasn't seeing my kid's dad anymore. He was around, but I wasn't seeing him. And what ended up happening is my mom, I was living with my mom at the time. My mom, being the Christian lady that she is, she's like, you are not going to carry this baby out of wedlock. So for me, I knew what that meant, but I still wasn't like processing that she was serious about me getting married. And it takes two to want to get married, but I didn't want to be married. I didn't even entertain the idea if he wanted to be married or not. I didn't want to be married, and I knew that that wasn't going to happen because we weren't even together. At that time, he was living in a different city, which was only an hour away from where we lived, but I wasn't seeing him actively. He wasn't seeing me, even though I was having his baby. We were in communication about that, but that's it. Like, I was not trying to be with him. And so what happened is, I guess he went through a period where he was trying to get me back. He bought me a ring. He said it was a promise ring at the time. He showed it to my mom and my stepdad, and they said that was an engagement ring. So they start planting that seed in his head about, this is an engagement ring. Y'all need to go ahead and get married. Now, mind you, my mom is coming to me. She's saying, you need to get married. You need to get married. I'm like, I don't want to get married. Like, I'm dead serious. I don't want to get married. Like, if me and him were to try again, fine. But I didn't want to get married. Like, I just did not want to get married. And I just knew he was not my person. And I'll explain in another video who he was as a person to me and why I didn't want to be with him. But that's a whole nother story, like I said, for another video. In this video, I just want to continue to explain how I ended up with 4 babies and a single mom. So my mom was just very adamant about it. She was constantly in my ear. My stepdad was too. They started talking with the pastor of our church, who is my aunt, and they were all just kind of like, team, you need to get married. And I was just like, not trying to hear it. Like, I started to shut him out at that point. His mom knew that they were trying to push us to get married. She didn't think it was a good idea. And I think that he was just kind of cool with it either way. What ended up happening was, I was in my room one day. I was probably about 4 or 5 months pregnant. I was in my room watching TV. My mom comes in with a box of invitations with an already printed date. And she says, you need to mail those out. Looking at the invitations, I had my name on it, his name on it, the wedding date. And that's when I knew, number one, my mom was crazy. Like, like, let's be real. Number two, she was not playing. And number three, I had to get married. And the reason that I just kind of threw in the towel like that is because as a young woman, I started to feel like, well, maybe she's right. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe, I'm not thinking this through. I'm not giving this a full chance. Like, if I have a child, maybe I do want to try to give this child the best life possible and do this with two parents versus one. I grew up in a single mom household. I know it's hard for moms, or father or dads, just doing it by themselves. I know it's hard with one parent. At the end of the day, if I could choose to not give that to my child, let me just do that. So I kind of threw in the towel. And at that point, I just kind of started to plan the wedding. I planned a really big, extravagant wedding because I felt like I'm only doing this one time. At that time, that's how I felt. I'm only doing this one time. So even though I'm only 20 years old, I'm going to do it. I'm going to just, go big. I also didn't want to be a pregnant bride. When you envision yourself walking down the aisle, you do not envision yourself with a whole belly, because automatically everybody's going to know why you're getting married, and they're going to question if it's what you really want. And I just didn't want that. I just didn't see myself being a pregnant bride. But nevertheless, that's what I ended up being. My mom made my dress, and I designed it, in a way to where you could see I was pregnant, But a lot of people who didn't know I was pregnant didn't know. Like, they couldn't tell. So only people who actually really could tell I was pregnant was the people who knew I was pregnant. And if you didn't know I was pregnant, you didn't know. A lot of people still to this day say, well, I didn't even know you was pregnant at your wedding. And I was a whole full 7 months pregnant when I got married. So fast forward to the wedding. And like I said, this is going to be a topic for another video. The man I married, my kid's dad, was not the best guy at all. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But at the wedding, there was definitely more red flags. But at that time, I knew he wasn't the best person. But I still had this idea in my mind as a young person that he could change, that he will change. He'll get better as he get older. He'll mature. And he won't always be like this. It won't always be like this. 6 months later, I would say this was right around the time that I had just had the baby, and I was in a situation where he was not working at all to support us. So I had to go to work and start to support us after I dropped the baby. So I became the sole provider in our marriage. It was, like I said, it was not the best marriage. It was a lot of abuse, a lot of different things going on. So I would say 6 months into our marriage, I knew that I would say that I was very unhappy. I knew that it wasn't going to be a great marriage. I did feel trapped, but I wasn't at that point where I felt like I was ready to end the marriage. Not at all. I didn't think I could end the marriage. I thought that this was a for life thing. So I was just kind of mentally preparing myself that I was going to have to deal with BS for a long time. In the process of us being married, he never became the man that was supportive financially. He never became the person that I could rely on, that my kids could rely on in the best way. There was a lot of good moments. He was a funny guy. He's a very, he's a jokester. He did babysit. And I hate to say babysit because he's their father. But when I would work, I did not have to worry about other people caring for our kids. He did that. He was great at cleaning the house. Like, when you think of a stay-at-home dad, he was a great stay-at-home dad. Great, great, great. That was not what I wanted. I did not want to be a provider, but I ended up being a provider. At some point, I would say maybe when my oldest was about 2, I went through a depression, and I decided that I wanted to go back to church. So I started going back to church. I became a very avid church goer, where I was just in church a lot. I mean, I was in the choir. I was on the usher board. I was back wearing skirts. I was really back into church. And I started going to church because I was really sad at home. And I really needed that connection with God to just kind of help me through that time in my life. And when I started going back to church, he became very jealous of me being away from home. He was already an insecure guy, but he was very jealous of me being away from home. He didn't like that he wasn't participating in that world, but he didn't want to join either. So going to church caused a lot of problems for us. For those who are Christians or grew up in church, know that scripture, be fruitful, multiply. So at the time I'm married to this man for 10 years. We were sexually active, of course, and but we were not using birth control because that was like forbidden. Now we did use condoms, and that sounds kind of crazy for a married couple to use condoms, but we were, because I really just didn't want to just be barefoot and pregnant, especially because I was providing at the time. So I just didn't want to be, pregnant all the time. But the times that we did not use condoms, I ended up pregnant. There was a few times, and I literally can just about remember every single time I conceived. And it was usually after a big fight. Both of us are emotional, or after something like some sort of episode happened. Maybe he cheated, something like that, where we were both once again emotional, and we were not careful with not getting pregnant. And so every time I got pregnant, I remember getting pregnant. And so that's where my 4 babies came from. My very last baby came from the fact that at that point, before I got pregnant with her, well, right around the time I got pregnant with her, that week I had found out that he was having an affair, like a 2-year affair. And at that point, I knew I was leaving. So I started to prepare myself and to make a plan to leave. And going through that process, I would say within that month, I found out I was pregnant with her. And so that caused me to stick around for another 2 years. So just as a whole, we were married for 10 years. Got married at 20. I filed for a divorce at 30. That's when I left him. Never went back. In the process of us going through the divorce and going through our new normal, he became very, very bitter. He was already an abusive person, like very abusive emotionally, physically, verbally. And after I left him, that just turned up like all the way. He became very bitter. He became very angry, and he fought me just to, as I'm trying to leave him. So I did go through a lot of stuff, protection orders, just different things that I had to go through in my path to leaving him. And like I said, these are other videos that we'll continue to talk about on these topics. But as I was trying to just kind of get out of it, he at that time was so upset with me not being with him that he just didn't want to participate in the kids' lives at all. And then when he did, he was using it as a way to get back into my life, to get back closer to me. So after getting the last protection order, it was for 5 years. And that was the time period that we both needed to, for me to find my new normal and for him to learn how to live life without me in it or his kids in it, because the kids was also on the protection order. So, when I see a lot of this stuff going on, like right now with Hallie and DDG and things like that, like I see it from her side very strongly, because I just remember going through stuff like that with my kids' dad. Sometimes men can just become so angry at the idea that they're not with you anymore. And they kind of bring you through hell in the process of the breakup and even after. And it makes you crazy. Definitely, for sure. So ever since, from the time I was 30 up until now, which I'm 42, I've been raising these kids solely on my own, without help from their dad. I do receive some child support. It is very little. I've received the amount of child support that one person might receive from one child. Um, and it's just very, very little. Under $400 a month. I'll just put that out there. And that's what I've been receiving for them since he started, doing the child support thing, which was about 5 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that. I want to say maybe 7 years ago is when I started getting it. So that's the only help I get. So I have been raising my kids on my own. When we split up, I think my oldest was 10. My second oldest was about 7. My son was 5 or 6, and my little girl was about 2. Raising them by myself, for the first part of it, it wasn't so bad because I lived in a community that had provided so many resources. Like, I had a YMCA right across the street. Their school was next to the YMCA. Everything was walking distance. They can get around without me, and I didn't have to worry about, picking them up and things like that. I also lived in a community where everybody kind of looked out for each other. And I didn't have to do a lot. I didn't have to worry about them. I was also in school at the time, so I was home with them more, and I was able to, just kind of be a full-on mom without having to worry about who's looking after my kids or anything like that. And I think for me, that was really, really big and important. We lived in a really nice townhome. I was receiving government assistance with my rent, so I didn't have to worry about that. It was just easy at that time when me and him first split up. I would say it started to get harder maybe about 5 years after that, when I no longer was receiving government assistance for my rent and I was no longer in school and I really just kind of had to just work to make a living. That's when it became very hard. And that's kind of the process that I'm still going through now. I have to work. I have to work full time. I have to work all the time to support us. And yeah, it does help now that 3 of my kids are old enough to work, but that's that part is, I think, the biggest struggle for me at this point in time in my life, is because now they're at a point where I need to teach them how to drive. I need to teach them, basic life skills. And I am not available to do that because it's just one of me. So that goes into, the topic of how, as a single mom, are you able to do what it takes a village to do? Like, you hear that saying a lot. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise 4 children, like multiple villages, I feel like you really start to think about things like in other countries, how they do it, how everybody participates, the aunts, the uncles, the mom, I mean the father, the both families, like everybody participates in raising a child. But here in America, it is frowned upon if you ask for help to raise a child, to help raise your child in any sort of way or form. Like, it's definitely frowned upon. So, for me, like, going through this process and this journey of being a mom and raising my children on my own, it's kind of like what you hear the teachers say. Like, teachers, we know, don't get paid a lot of money, but you hear them say, like, it's so rewarding though. It's so rewarding, but it is, to me, it's harder, because I'm now managing not only my adult life, but I have to manage 4 teenagers' lives as well. And they still actively need me. I just want to kind of give you all some background and go into, who I am and what I got going on, how I came to this point in my life. And I'll continue to talk more about this. This was just kind of just a summary of the last 20 years of my life and how I came to be who I am. And as you guys continue to see more videos from me, I'll go a little bit more into depth as to, some of the decisions that I've had to make, why I had to make those decisions, getting to know my kids, just everything leading up till now. So hopefully you guys want to hear more from me and you subscribe to my channel. I got so much to talk about and so much to share with you guys. And my goal in this is just for other people, whether you're a man or a woman, to identify with the things that I've gone through. And hopefully I can, be of some support or give out some advice or some sort of help to you as you go through your journey. I've learned so much going through the things that I've gone through, and I just want to share. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you on my next video.